We're getting better. We're getting better.
We're getting closer.
Episode 6 coming at you.
The hot topic, the one
Man,
we've
it's
all
the
been
end of
waiting for.
November.
It is.
Exactly.
No, it is. For those listening that can't see, I'm growing a pitiful excuse for a beard over here.
Same as well, if you can't tell.
The sides, man, the chops area is so tough to grow in. You know?
I could never grow that. I'm happy none of you can see me in person because it looks a little bit better on camera.
Yeah.
But give it the rest of the week, you know.
Speaking of growing things, this episode is all about hypertrophy, the moment we've all been waiting for. I've been so excited to dive into this,
Yeah.
and maybe dispel some myths, impart some information. I wanted to start off, though, for those listening, the textbook definition for hypertrophy, if I can get my page up, from the NSCA is, let me get my notes here. According to the National Strength and Conditioning Association, hypertrophy is the increase in the size of the muscle. Now we look at the ACSM, the American College of Sports Medicine. According to the ACSM, the process of increasing muscle mass through training. And they both have different, standards and guidelines that they follow to achieve it. But for the layperson, the art and science of making muscles grow, the entire premise upon which bodybuilding is built.
I should have had a drum roll there. Drum roll, and now your description.
Yes.
From the NSCA.
I should be presenting at a conference, basically. I wanted to start off though with what it is not. After talking about what it is, because you and I have both had a lot of clients, whether they're young athletes, they're adults, with full-time jobs and families that want to increase their muscle size. It's a fair goal to have, but boy, I think there's a lot of misconception out there. Specifically what I'm talking about, I've had a lot of clients on initial calls or initial meetings say to me, but I don't want to get big. I want to weight train, I want to get stronger, but I don't want to get big. And for a long time, and then I'd say, I don't know what it was, maybe a year and a half ago, it started to kind of rub me the wrong way, because to make muscles grow is really fucking hard. It's really tough. And so to say, I want to train, but I don't want to get big. I mean, I equate that to like someone saying, I would take a dance class, but I would hate to end up on Broadway. Or I never got my license because I'm not trying to be a NASCAR driver. And it's like, weightlifting, we've talked about before, weightlifting is a skill, and growing muscle is a very intentional, long process. No one in the history of the world has ever woken up and said, oh my gosh, my arms are 4 inches bigger overnight. I have to give up weight training. It doesn't work that way. To those that are worried about it, if anything, it will, make you look leaner when you build muscle mass. It's a long process. It's not something that happens by accident. And similarly,
that'd be pretty cool.
Oh man, it would make our profession so much simpler and so much easier.
Yeah, we wouldn't have jobs, I guess, if that was the case. But
Yeah, if it was that easy, we would definitely be out of work.
Yeah.
I think our old boss a while back, I think, had a good saying that I'm borrowing, and that's training doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's so many other factors to account for when training. It's not just the stimulus of training. We've talked about it before. There's 168 hours in a week. Feel free to check my math if I'm wrong. But with those hours comes sleep, the act of restoration, eating, and fueling that muscle growth. I mean, to think that we're just going to, hit the weights for 4 or 5 days out of the week and we're going to balloon up is like that. That's not how the body works in any way, shape, or form, unless you're taking a whole lot of illegal supplements.
Even then, though.
I mean, yeah, even then it's still a fucking process.
Yeah, you still, like, even if you were doing all of that, you still have to work just as hard as everyone else does,
Yeah.
I think that's another misconception. Whatever. But
No, I think that's worth touching on, and could be a whole nother episode. But people, like you said, have this misconception that if I take steroids or whatever performance enhancer you want to sub in there, that I'm just going to magically balloon up. And it's like, you still have to lift the weights. If you just do massive amounts of steroids and sit on your couch, you're not going to the Olympia competition. Like, are you kidding me? You have to train. Now, will it
Yeah.
improve the rate at which you recover from training? Sure. Will it speed up the results somewhat? Sure. But you still have to shovel the right macronutrients down to yield the
Yeah.
results that you want, and you still have to recover, and you still have to have a good fucking split if you're going to train 7 days a week. Um, which again, those are the highest level. I'm not saying all of them do, but you certainly have to be obsessed with your training.
Yeah.
You have to have a clever split in play. Like, I mean, if you think you're going to win the Olympia with just a push-pull leg split, sorry to tell you, that is not enough stimulus for the muscle.
I would love somebody's gonna DM me and be like, "Hey, I know somebody that did it just like that, like in 1990 or whatever." And you're like, "Okay, I'll give it to you."
I'm
Maybe
sure.
the one guy, right? There's one guy out of everything, but you touched on eating is super important. I
Yeah.
think what you put into your body. You said the macronutrients. I think that is a thing that I resonate with the most. Is that a lot of people ask well, I want to lift weights, but I don't want to get bulky, or I don't want to, that I get that a lot, and so does everyone else, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
could be with athletes, that could be with, normal people just trying to gain muscle mass and also, lose some fat. And I would say a lot of that contributes to the stuff outside the gym, how you're eating, and how that day to day is like. Because even if you worked out 7 days a week, I mean, if you eat like shit and not have the things that are necessary for you to really optimize your time training, then you'll never get there at any point in time.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to really touch on in this episode was from two, practitioners in the field, two people that, coach people all day, every day, with this goal in mind, some actionable items that listeners can, try to take home and implement. And if nothing else, take a look at their training objectively to see where there's gaps, because more often than not, if you're not seeing an increase in muscle mass and size, it's more likely than not that you're just overlooking something very simple. So I guess starting with nutrition intake, what is your goal protein intake for clients that want to build muscle mass? What number do you give them roughly, or what math do you do for them?
I would say, if they're trying to seriously gain mass, it's one of those things in hypertrophy, right? If we're just trying to get bigger, I usually say 1.2 to 2 grams per pound of protein that these people need in their normal day. So if I'm 200 pounds, that is at least 200 grams right there. More than that for myself. Maybe I'm a little off on that. I'm trying to think exactly what. It's been a long time since I dived into the exact numbers, but
Well,
for me, yeah, go for it.
I just real quick want to say this is not us giving specific nutrition advice. This is not us creating a meal plan. Coaches are not registered dietitians for the most part,
No.
but we do understand that protein fuels the growth of muscle mass. So that's why we're talking about it. I don't want anyone to say, well, they're not dietitians. What are they talking about food for and these macros? I know to those listening, but I think your math might have been off, but I get the gist of what you're saying. Typically, I'll shoot for something similar and say roughly what we want is 1 gram per pound of body weight. So again, a 180-pound person should take down 180 grams of protein a day.
Yes.
To the general pop listening, that is a lofty goal. That is a very hard goal to reach, and it's supposed to be, because gaining mass is hard. And I think you may have clients that fall in this category, but if you're not hitting your protein goal, the best analogy that I have is it's like showing up to a construction site and saying, we're here to build a house, and there's no bricks, there's no concrete, there's no 2x4s, and your boss says, all right, I want you to build this house. And you're like, with what? With what? So to build muscle mass and not be hitting a protein goal or a carb goal, because I mean it all fuels in, but it's like, build it with what? Build it with the fraction of the protein that we should be getting. And if you don't know how much protein you're getting and you want to build muscle mass, you're really leaving your results up to chance. If you don't know, what isn't measured isn't managed.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's full circle, and I would say that's kind of the biggest piece is eating protein with every meal, trying to like you have to be consciously thinking about eating more protein and having more protein in your diet and in your day to day, and especially after workouts, right? And that's like, I mean, you could talk all about the 2 hour window that you're supposed to replenish all of those things and then some, right? We could get into that as well, but yeah, I would just say like as a coach, what I'm saying is I'm just asking them like the basics first. Like, did you eat breakfast? Did you eat lunch? Did you eat dinner? Then it's like, okay, now if you're doing that consistently, now we can start sprinkling in a snack here or there, a good protein snack. I don't know. I'm a big peanut butter guy. I love peanut butter. Putting
Love it.
peanut butter on anything. That's just a small way that I will do it, but yeah, and then the next step from there is like, okay, now if we're doing all of those things and we've been doing it consistently and we're still not making progress, then we can kind of look at everything else. Like, let's see how many steps you're getting a day. Let's see if there's more ways we can get more protein. Like, I might have them drink like a protein shake or like protein at night because the only thing that your body's doing at night is just
Repair.
repair. Yeah, so like that protein is definitely going to help you in that process of hopefully 6 to 8 hours of you not moving and you not having any steps and not having to burn any calories. And yeah,
I do want to dive into sleep, but before I do that, I got a little bit more to say about protein. I've been asked the question before, when people have low protein numbers and they say, how do I just get more protein in? It's like, it's real simple. You just double the size of whatever the fuck you're eating. Like, to build muscle mass requires eating a lot. You know what I mean? And of course, I don't say
yeah,
that, but I mean, the reality is, if you sit down and let's say you have a salad with, chicken on top of it, because we want it to be lean when we put that muscle mass on.
sure.
Um, well, how much chicken do you have in there?
Good luck, by the way. Yeah.
Putting just muscle mass on? That's
Oh, like if the only thing you're eating is chicken and rice or chicken and salad or whatever, and everything's stupid lean, like good luck trying to add a lot of mass.
well, I mean, but again, all the more you have to eat. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
saying go out and eat garbage because that's going to yield terrible results, but if your goal is to build mass, you can be a lot more lenient with what junk you
Hmm.
shovel in. I mean, because you have to be in a surplus, right? So we're already punching above our weight class, so to speak, with our meals. So yeah, you can get away with a little extra carbs, a little extra fat because you have to eat so much fucking protein. So don't beat
Yes.
yourself up if the macros are a little bit skewed for fat and carbs. I'm not saying go out and have a hot fudge sundae every single day, but you can certainly get away with a lot more. But
Hmm.
how do I get that number up? It's like, well, if you have a let's say chicken and rice, right, and it's 4 ounces of chicken, it's very easy. Have 8 ounces of chicken and rice. It's like, but that's so much chicken. It's like, welcome to the game.
Yeah.
That's what you're here to do. Like, I don't, I, you know,
Go. Yeah.
what do you
Go
mean? How
watch
do you get
like
that
the.
number up?
Go watch the Arnold. Go watch the Ronnie Coleman documentaries where like they literally wake up in the middle of the night just to eat protein, just
Yep.
to make a shake, just to like grill up chicken or whatever, right? And like they are literally like waking up in the middle of the night to like eat constantly, keep their metabolism going, constantly be eating, you know.
For those that aren't familiar, these are legendary figures in the world of bodybuilding. These are people of size that is almost hard to imagine and certainly barely imaginable to attain for most people. So I'm not saying that you have to wake up in the middle of the night to force feed yourself, a rocky smoothie of raw eggs or shovel down chicken breast. But to Luke's point, to be in that 1% to grow muscle mass, yeah, it takes commitment. It takes an eating schedule, which sounds so monotonous, so monotonous.
How much are you willing to sacrifice? And that's, I
Yep.
think that's the hardest thing. Like some people can get away with doing less and benefiting more, but a lot of people,
Well,
you know,
circling
are on that
circling back to
the
that,
other spectrum.
like we were talking about at the beginning, right? I mean, what's the profile of the person that wants to build this mass? We have experience
Yeah.
working with young guys that are 15, and I mean, respectfully, they could eat a whole pizza, and they would still, you know, I mean, build muscle mass. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what they don't have to track shit because their bodies are made to pack on pounds of muscle. Again, this is
Yes.
15-year-old male athletes versus, someone in their 40s or 45. Let's say it's a guy, just for sake of this example, to put on muscle mass at that age is so hard because your endocrine system is just not running at the speed that it was. Your metabolism is not running at the speed that it was. The repair process takes so much longer. The way I've started to kind of think of it recently is your margin for error shrinks significantly. Meaning, as a kid, yeah, eat whatever you want. Train 3 to 4 or 5 times a week. You will build mass. You'll be fine. You can get away with a lot. As you get older, you have a much, much smaller margin of error in order to hit that goal. Meaning you can't, like the rule of 80-20 is out the window. You're at 98.2. 98% of the time you're dialed in, 2% of the time you get to slack. And that's not fun. That's not fun. But again, to your point, how important is it that you build that muscle mass? So yeah, who's training certainly matters. But you also talked about sleep. If you are training 5 days a week and you're hitting your protein goal and you're getting your steps and you're tracking your nutrition and you're still not seeing results, and you look back and you're getting, 3-4 hours of sleep, averaging 5 a week, there you go. You will not make you will not make gains if you are not getting your sleep. Again, it's like showing up to build a house. All right, well, where's my tools? Where's my hammer and nails? We don't have any for you. Good luck building. It's like, yeah, we're not going to get anything done in this building process.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting too. Like, I always think, like, it's kind of funny saying this as a strength coach, but like the sets and reps and in comparison to the other things like sleep and nutrition, or like just the time that you spend outside of the weight room, is going to be so much more important. Even like the sets and reps, they matter, right? Especially when things are dialed in. But I would say in the grand scheme of things, they matter less than that big picture stuff that you get all of that stuff checked in. That's like your prerequisites. If we're going back to college, like all the math classes that I failed to get into my normal math in college. Shout out Otterbein, right? I had to take like a couple of prerequisites that to get into the normal math class. And I think it's the same thing. Like your prerequisites to gaining mass are eating more, or sleeping better, or maybe walking more if you're somebody that is just like overweight, or just doesn't have a lot of muscle mass. I think a lot of those small things that we talk about for the general population is going to benefit them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about those being prereqs. It's interesting that you touch on steps, because when we're talking about building muscle mass, for most people, I don't care about steps. However, if you're going to come to me and tell me that you want to see the muscle mass that you're putting on in the immediate, right? How many times have we heard, I want to put on muscle mass, but I don't want any of it to be fat? Well, then realistically, maybe
Yes.
12 to 14,000 steps a day is now your minimum. Meaning you need to move if you want to put on just muscle mass. That is a very tall ask of the body. The body doesn't say, oh, this is a fat cell. Oh, we're building muscle. I'm going to get rid of the fat cell, unless you're moving a lot. It's just, steps for me. If your goal is gaining muscle mass, I'm probably not going to coach you on steps unless, again, all of the other things are, those I's are dotted and T's are crossed. I coach it to everybody for the most part. I do think it's important. But again, if we're talking about strictly building muscle mass, it's not. To me, it's low-hanging fruit. You should get it, but if you don't, I'm not going to beat you up for it. So we talked about sleep. Should be getting 7 to 9 hours for most people every night. We talked about protein intake. I'm a big proponent of that 1 gram per pound of body weight. I think there's a lot of leeway in there. If you're hitting that goal and you can inch it up to like 1.2 grams per pound, great, go for it. Yeah. And if you're falling short of it, aim for 0.8. If you can consistently get 0.8, that's a lot better than getting 0.5 or 0.3 grams a day. So aim for 0.8 if you can. We talked about protein, talked about sleep, talked a little bit about steps, talked about the textbook definition, and then you touched on the sets and reps matter. So for those listening, let's dive into some of the X's and O's. How many days a week would you give someone that has this goal? Let's say time's not a limiting factor. You give them a 4-day split, 5-day split. You have them work out 7 days a week, just for let's go with the Gen Pop person that wants to build muscle mass. What are you starting with in terms of your split?
I'd probably give them 4 days, and then so you can kind of maximize your time from upper lower.
Sorry, you were saying upper lower, upper lower?
No, yeah. So I would just, if I was going to program a new client, training days, and their goal is hypertrophy or mass building, I would probably give them 4 days, and just so we can isolate more muscle groups, and not to say that we wouldn't do full body things, right? But I just think that it depends on what we're really prioritizing. If we're prioritizing just muscle mass and just having things look bigger, like having my traps look bigger, having my biceps look bigger, I'm going to focus on isolating that muscle so I can make it grow more. But yeah, and that's a good thing too. Like it goes into goals, it goes into the client, and it goes into like what they really want. Like they might say they want to gain muscle mass, but then you ask them more questions, and they're like, "Oh, I just want to look like Ronaldo." And it's like, okay, Ronaldo, he's cut, he's kind of big, but he's not huge. Like you're not trying to look like Arnold or somebody that like is really like when I think of a guy gaining mass, that is who I think of. So I guess there's that point too.
I do, just as a quick aside, and we could do it as a separate episode, but that is another big thing, right? Is sorting out on that first time meeting a client. What are your goals? What do you tell me? And what do you mean by that, right? Because to your point, I want to build muscle mass and I want to look like this lean, shredded person. And the person in front of me might be heavier set. It's like, so your goal might be more body recomposition. It might be fat loss. It might be, pick whatever term you want. But really, I like the term recomp for that kind of client. Because the idea is we're building muscle mass and burning fat. I mean, I would really call it like it's a weight loss program. Mm-hmm. The end result being you look like you have more muscle definition to you. Right? And then they'll say, yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like, great, because if I set you on a hypertrophy path, you'd only get bigger. And that's not what you're telling me you want. So yeah, I think that's an interesting distinction that, a rabbit hole we could go down. Okay, 4 days, yeah, interesting. I tend to lean towards 5 or 6 days. Again, depending upon the person and depending, what their schedule allows. But I find for a 5-day split, I'll give myself a little slap on the wrist. I know it's good to get more exposure to the muscles, maybe a couple of times a week if we can, right? So I'll usually do like 2 leg days in a week. Let's say it's a 5-day split I'm talking about. I'll do like a chest, shoulder, and tricep to start the week. We'll move into something like a lower body quad dominant day, which also has hamstring components to it. And then we'll move into like a back, bicep, shoulder day. Then move into something that's leg again, but more hip dominant. But again, it has quad dominant patterns on it. And then something to close out the week that's just, I'll be honest, fun and fluff. It's all delts, bis, tris, abs, maybe calf raises in there. And what I find, I guess I say that slap on the wrist because it looks like I'm only hitting quads once a week. Realistically, it's getting some work on that second day, and it's kind of disguised in there. But I really do think you want to try to touch on these muscle groups as many times in a week as you can, which is why I also like a 6-day split, because if you're doing, I don't want to say push-pull legs. I don't want to say that, but like a very artisanal push-pull legs, if you will, right? So each muscle group is getting hit twice in the week. That's certainly an option. To your point, you certainly could go with a 4-day split. It's a tough question that I threw your way, and I do it on purpose.
No, it's good because I think it's interesting to kind of think about those things, and I guess like looking back on it, it's like, okay, if somebody's really serious about this and is really dedicated to it, then yeah, for sure, 5 or 6 days is definitely the way to go, because then it's like, more touch points, and you can spread out your days a little bit more, and you can focus on things even more specific to what you need and what you want. But yeah, I would say like I just haven't really came across that many people that are really that dedicated. You know what I
No, no,
mean?
100%. No, I mean, yeah, to everyone listening, a coach always puts pen to paper and comes up with a plan. And this is what we said before, training does not exist in a vacuum. Clients will have work come up. So maybe they miss 2 out of their 6 days, which is like throwing off the plan a bit. They
Yeah.
have, family. They have to worry about their own sleep needs, feeling fueled for the workouts. Training does not exist in a vacuum. So whatever split we come up with is not necessarily what's going to end up happening in that week. But the reason I say it's an impossible question is because I also like your 4 day split, right? Because they get a day of rest after both of those on days, right? So
Yeah.
upper lower rest, upper lower rest. So I mean, you could, and again, things change, right? How long do they have to work out?
Yeah.
What is their setup? If we
I
have,
mean,
go ahead.
yeah, you could even bring in active rest days in there, right? Like I was just thinking about that. Like, okay, so if you have 2 days on, then you have an active rest day where you can still hit all the accessory work that you think you might need or want. And those are like a little bit lower intensity day, but you're still getting some good work in. And then, you have another 2 big days and then you can do it again. But yeah, I guess you kind of have to be very dialed into what you have programmed and what you have planned, and then your ability to kind of change and adapt. I think is how you're a good coach and how you're a good training partner and how you can train well. Like if you're somebody that knows what you're doing, then yeah, man, we can throw a lot of different ideas at you and see what sticks. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and I would push back on you a little bit with active recovery days. Only reason being, and again, there's gray in all of this, so I'm not bashing your split. To those listening, if you're a beginner lifter, 4 days is plenty. Your body's going to
Yeah,
soak up everything that you're doing very, very well, and you're not going to hate life. And that's key to the longevity of training. So I do like your split for that purpose. I would say the only thing I have against the active recovery days is I feel like you're looking at it through the strength and conditioning coach lens,
I definitely am. Yeah,
whereas I'm viewing it through the more personal training Gen Pop lens.
yeah,
In that active recovery days, right? If we're talking recomposition, body recomposition, right? Looking lean and shredded, sure. Take an active recovery day, get your 15,000 steps, so you have some slack on your other days, get some swimming, biking, whatever. But again, if our goal is strictly to build muscle mass, I'm not going to say fuck rest days, but your rest days are in a way can be built into your split, right? And so when we
yeah,
talk about that 5 or 6 day split, the reason I'm doing 2 leg days is because there's 2 days in between those leg days or
yeah,
three to rest up. But again, what's the age of the athlete? How much stress can they tolerate? Or I say athlete, client, whatever. How much stress
yeah.
can they tolerate? How sore are they going to be? The reality is, if you're
Mm.
trained for hypertrophy, you're probably going to hate life. Let's be real. Let's be real. You're going to
Yeah,
ache because the whole point of hypertrophy, again, to dive into the very surface level science of it, is you're damaging the muscle so that the repair process has to happen. And that muscle says, well, I don't want to get broke down next time. I'm going to be, stronger, thicker, more resilient. So guess what?
yeah,
As coaches, we put more stress on the muscle. We keep breaking it down, keep building it up. And eventually, if you're actually consistent at it, you look like, someone that belongs on the Olympia stage. It's a very
yeah,
long and tough process. But I mean, you're not going to walk around and be like, boy, I have so much energy today. You're going to be like, my legs hurt. I
yeah,
wish I had a home elevator. I don't want to go up and down these stairs. You're going to say, man, it hurts to wash my hair. My biceps are just so achy. It sucks, and it's supposed to suck. You're damaging the tissue again and again and again. So I like your 4 day
yeah.
split, but again, if I'm looking at it through a personal training lens, I'm with a beginner athlete for sure, for sure. But it depends. If someone really moves well, I might.
No, that's an important point you just brought up too. Like, you can only climb the ladder so high until you like hit a plateau or a peak, and then you have to come back down. So like hypertrophy is one of those things in my mind where if you're doing it all year round, your training has to be very focused,
Mhm.
and you have to have certain things in mind, and certain specific adaptations and ways that you train,
Mhm.
right? So I don't know, like you could dive into all the like different ways of like how to train hypertrophy, but I think the biggest thing is like you can only, unless it's really dialed in and you have a coach that is coaching you through these like month by month and the changes and the
Mhm.
adaptations that you're looking for, um, you're gonna crash and burn, and that's why a lot of people I don't think will get 6 days because they're gung ho for a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, and then you get to like that point where it's like, okay, you've been doing some really hard shit and like a ton of volume, like sometimes like an outrageous amount of reps in a workout, 300, 400, 500 total reps in a workout, and then you can't hold on to that for too much longer, in my opinion. I mean, what are your thoughts?
So you brought up a really good point in terms of a saying I like is things bend until they break. When your goal is not to be sore all the time, but it's just a reality you're going to have to face. To your point, there needs to be some way that you're measuring progression and knowing when to back off. I'm a big fan of deload weeks, and that looks different for everybody, right? I mean, are you in a 4-week phase? Or are you in a 12-week phase? Those deloads come at different times, but again, things bend until they break. So if I'm going to put all this stress on you, at some point you're going to need to breathe. You're going to need to come up to surface and catch your breath because it's a smothering amount of volume. And to get in a little bit into X's and O's, to your point, Luke, there's a lot of ways that we can talk about progressing through a phase. It could look like more reps, like a very linear periodization model. It could look like an increase in load. Again, you still want to respect your hypertrophic, sets and reps. It could look like greater depth and range of motion, put more stretch on the muscle. There's no one way to progress in a hypertrophic program. At the end result is, are you able to put enough stress on the muscle to elicit the adaptation of growth, with good form and significant load. And then, so I do think that there definitely has to be some way to pull back and, look at the progress you've made and breathe from that stress. Otherwise, you're not going to stick with it.
No.
Yeah. One other thing I want to touch on was there's, tons of studies and research about rep ranges you should have, certain exercises that are best for this, that, and the other. I think a lot of times in our field we get so lost in the X's and O's, and there's definitely a place for research. I'm not here to say ignore all that, but at the end of the day, consistency in the gym and on the plate and sleeping will yield powerful results, even if you're doing some things wrong.
Yes.
But if you're going in and doing 10 sets of doubles, I'll tell you right now, you're not training for hypertrophy.
Yeah, you're probably talking to the wrong people.
Yeah.
Maybe if you do like 40 sets of 2, I don't.
But at some point, we'll reach a point where the stimulus is pretty great there. But something else to think about too, when we talk about progression, what comes to mind is the place we used to work at was big on tempo-based work and isometrics, more specifically tempo-based work. I really like tempo-based work because if I have someone, let's say, super simple example here, they're doing bench press, 3 sets of 10, and let's say they're maxed out in dumbbells, right? If you're at home working out, 3 sets of 10, you're used 50s. I don't have my 60 and 70 expansions yet. Give it a 3-second count on the way down. You tripled the amount of time that muscle is under stretch. All right, well, I did that for 2 or 3 weeks. It's getting pretty easy now with the 50s, and I'm doing my 3-second count. Do it to slow 5-second counts on the way down. That's a progression. We're accumulating more time under tension. At some point, you're going to have to get 60s and 70s, but tempo is a great way to look at progression in a hypertrophic program. That, again, people at home want you to get your value and listen to this. It's a great way to kind of level up your program. What else?
Yeah, tempo is a big one. Like time under tension, the amount of time that muscle is being worked. It can be a lot of different things. It can be going slow on the way down. That's the eccentric portion, which means that muscle is stretching and it's going through the stretch, and there's more breakdown during that process. But if you're just like holding a squat, like let's say you hold a quarter squat, then you go low, and then you hold like a half squat, and you're just holding the position the entire time, and you never stand up and break that position. That is time under tension. That's another way. Like you could call that a wall sit too, and like there's other ways of you like holding positions and just holding that time, and that's another way that there is stress and different muscle breakdown that you're gonna want. So
yeah, tempo is a great way to level it up. Again, we can go 3 sets of 10 to 3 sets of 12 to 15 to 3 sets of 20, which is, stressful on the muscle and the joint, or we can talk about that progression of time under tension. There's no one right way to do it. But get to training, stay consistent, eat your protein, get your sleep. Have we covered hypertrophy in full, do we think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's really just like hit it and hit it hard. I think that's like when people think of like getting a pump. Also, I think that is the same idea as well with hypertrophy. Like most people that get a pump are because that there's so much blood going to that muscle that it feels like you're getting this awesome like pump in your body to that muscle group, and that is basically like the same reps or the same hypertrophy training.
Hypertrophic training.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the pump is a fickle beast. If you just chase the pump, there are going to be some days where you're just not feeling it. It's stay the long course. The pump is great. The pump is wonderful. But again, with where you're at in your phase of training, you might not be feeling a pump. Doesn't mean you're not getting results.
Yeah.
Stay the course.
That's a good point too.
All right, man. You
Cool.
want to take us out?
That's a wrap. Yeah, this is us, 9 p.m. We getting it done after work.
Late night crew.
We're making it happen, so you should make it happen too. Like, follow, subscribe, hit us up. If you have any questions, go eat your turkey on Thanksgiving, and don't be one of those people that doesn't eat because they're trying to track their bullshit. Be that person that will eat Thanksgiving dinner with their families and with the people that are trying to love and embrace you. So that's all I got for you.
To be fair, Thanksgiving might be one of the most anabolic holidays because all we do is eat, make sure you're eating a lot of protein, and then sleep right after. Get that nap. There's nothing more muscle growing than that.
Yeah. Oh, what did you say earlier? You were talking about my son. He's always in a hypertrophy stage. All he does is, what did you say? All he does is eat and. I forget exactly what you said.
I remember what I said. I forgot to grab the baby monitor. Give me one quick second. I'm coming right back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All babies are the best bodybuilders around for a very simple reason. All they do is eat. Every 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. They'll wake up in the middle of the night to eat, just like bodybuilders. And what do? They walk up to things and they say, "Can I lift that?" "I don't know. I'll try." They pull themselves up on things. They play, they experiment, they figure it out. So if you move often, eat a lot, and sleep an insane amount, babies have it figured out. They're the best bodybuilders there are. Their entire lives, hypertrophy, growing, literally growing.
Literally. There you go.
It's a beautiful thing.
All right. Deuces. See you, fam. 3, 2, 1.
Solid.